Hey guys, this is GrimDoctor. Welcome to another build video. Firstly, I just want to quickly say thanks for being patient, guys. I've been a bit unwell, so I haven't been able to get a video up for a little bit. Also, I've been having some software issues. Fraps has gone mental, and I wanted to do the build videos in a new format that's a little bit quicker, just looking directly at the build. So without further ado, let's get into it. And yes, quickly, sorry. Thank you very, very much for all the feedback. That's part of the reason I've changed the format. And also, I just want to, I've got lots of different builds, lots of different build ideas, and I'd rather get them out rather than get them out, still quality builds, but just at least get them to you guys so you don't have to wait as long as before. And hopefully I won't get quite as sick. But anyway, let's keep on going. So this is my Necromancer. I guess I call it my Tough Worlds build. I had one version of it, which I was really excited about. The one that I was talking about when I was posting on little updates on the YouTube channel. It was starting to not work in some of the high-end fractals, which I wasn't so pleased with. So I wanted to solidify that, make it a bit better in that sense. And definitely done that now. We're all the way up to the top fracks and not having an issue. And considering most people say that Necros can't survive in the high-end ones, I'm surviving and out-surviving people. So I think that's pretty fair to say that this is working. Okay, so quickly, we're just going to have a quick look. We'll come back to the skills in a sec. But yeah, I'm using Axe Focus, Dagger Focus. Axe Focus is what you're going to stick with most of the time. Reason why is it's a support build, but you still want to be able to hold your own. Again, this is a build that you can take anywhere. Axe is quite a good power weapon, I guess you'd class it as for a Necromancer. And it's good in the way that I like to think of it as being supportive weapon as well, because basically the one skill, vulnerability, that doesn't just help you, it helps everyone around you as well to bring down an enemy quicker. And there's not too many enemies that are immune to vulnerability. Actually, I can't even really think of one off the top of my head. So we use the focus to add more. Basically, in all instances, that's going to give you at least 12 stacks of vulnerability on the enemy just from one hit, and that's going to bounce to other enemies as well. On top of that, regen amongst that to your allies, which is pretty sweet, along with the damage. Probably two notable things on this is your Ghastly Claws and your Reaper's Touch. They give you life force. Now, this isn't a Death Shroud specific build like a lot of Necromancer builds are, but you do want to be able to have it there when you need it for two different reasons: for healing and condition removal on your allies, which I'll go into a bit more coming up, and also for survivability. So if you know that a massive hit's coming, you can jump into Death Shroud. It absorbs the hit rather than your health pool absorbing the hit, and you can keep on going. Okay, so that's that. And then the final skill, you're not going to use it all the time, but there are quite a few enemies that do have boons quite often. This is in PvP context. I guess Dredge are a big one, and the Ettins have it also. So it does damage as well as putting a bit of a chill on them. So it's a little bit of crowd control, I guess you could say as well. Can be nice when you got to slow them down if they're going to hit you anyway. It might give you that second or whatever you need to maybe get endurance back and do a bit of a dodge, because one thing that's big with Necros, you don't have anything like other classes do to boost that regeneration. It can be done with food, but I don't know, if you get a good rotation, you'll see once all these skills come together, you can probably get away with it. Excuse me. Okay, so let's have a quick look. So that's what we've got there now. Yeah, I've basically ended up going with a pretty heavy Wells build, as you'll see here. So got the Well of Blood for healing, Well of Suffering, and the Well of Power. Reasons, basically quite a big heal out of the Well of Blood, which is great. We've got them all ranged with a trait, so we can pop them where we need them, which is quite nice. Especially because Necros, with the weapon choices that we've got, you've got sort of a bit more of a different range to most people. Most people have, very close or very far away, like up to 1200, but your axe is generally around the 600 mark. So Well of Suffering, it's more vulnerability as well as damage, And it gives us an AoE source, which Necros are extremely good at single target damage, but we don't have a lot of AoE, so it's a way to get a bit of that in there. And you'll see there that each one that I'm hovering over, they've got protection. That's from a trait as well. And protection, I think, overall in the community is extremely underrated. I guess this is thinking about it a bit more maybe from a fractal high end, like the top tier fractal type element, where it just seems to come down to, I mean, there's mechanics obviously, but you start to take massive damage. So anything you can do to negate that, and being a necro, you don't have a lot of dodges that you can utilize. Protection can be extremely good. It's also another reason we've gone with a lot of toughness, which we'll go into a bit later as well. But that combination is quite nice. And the good thing about it, that protection is not just for you, but it's for everyone. That protection, it's the 33% incoming damage reduction. May not sound like a lot, but it can be enough by far. And in combination with some of these other skills, it can be pretty cool. So then we've got Well of Power. Reason that we do that is because it's a stun break, and I think you can never have enough stun breaks. It doesn't matter what your role is. A lot of people don't worry about them that are all full Zerkers. Now, why have all the power if you're on the ground and you can't use it? I don't see the point. And if you're going to be more of a support class, when you're on the ground, you can't really help everyone quite as much. So it's another way to keep up. And the second beauty of it is it doesn't do any damage, but each pulse of that Well of Power is going to convert a condition into a boon, which is brilliant. That's quite a bit of condition removal, and it's even better the fact that it's a conversion as well. That applies to you and your allies, which is brilliant. Then the final one of my new favorite skills with the Necro. Never used to use it much in the past, but basically every 10 seconds it removes conditions from your allies and brings them to yourself. You can even then, if you want to use it, or then using it as a stun break, send all those conditions to a targeted enemy, which is awesome. Basically, from what I've seen, everything I've read, there isn't a limit. You've got so much condition removal that you tend to keep them off anyway. So I haven't sort of purposely tried to get 12 conditions on me or something. But you're not going to get in situations where you're going to be too overwhelmed. But it can be enough to, I guess, if you've got weakness on you and you really need to DPS something down a bit, switch to a bit more of a power mode, it's a good way to just send that the other way. And again, reduce damage on everyone, which is sweet. The elite skill, it depends. Being a Sylvari, if you've got a group that's sort of not as, maybe, I don't know, they're sort of not so skilled, or they're people that are a bit more gung-ho, it's a way to just have a heal that you don't have to do anything with. You just activate it and keep on doing your own thing, and it just gives, I guess, a bit of a little top-up while you can stay active doing what you need to do with your other skills. So it's very good like that. I do switch between that and Lich Form, probably starting to use Lich Form a little bit more because I'm doing a lot more higher fractals and people are usually a bit more competent with it. And you get good with your rotations with your other skills. You can make that redundant to a degree. And there's, the Necros don't have really many abilities that give them stability, except for really this one here. So Lich gives you stability for the whole time that you've got it. That can be extremely handy, even though you can only do really DPS throughout that time. You do have condition removal on the 5 skill, which is pretty handy. So that is the skills. So yeah, like I said, just Lich sometimes, that one for others, but it depends on your group and how you go from there. So I'm going to just switch to armor very quickly. Okay, so played with a hell of a lot of things here, but ended up going with full cleric. My original build had a lot more crit damage, crit chance and crit damage built into it, and you can still have like around the 1200 or 1100 healing power with that sort of build. Your power actually goes up to, you can get it closer to, what did I get to, about 2400, 2500, with that sort of a little bit of balance, like having the healing in there. It's okay, but for the amount of, you still do plenty of damage with Like, I used a few crit damage calculators, and you just see what's on the screen. It's not really worth it, because a lot of the time, I mean, the big thing you're sacrificing, I guess, is the toughness. And without the toughness, you're not up enough to do the damage. And as I said before, if you're not up and you're not active, that's downtime. You're not offering DPS or condition removal or healing or whatever it may be. Doesn't matter what your role is, there's sort of no point, especially in those really high-end type fractals. Or if you want to use this as like some sort of bunker build in PvP or World v World, if you can't take the damage when you're trying to be a bunker, then what's the point? There's not really any point. And then I guess the other thing when it comes to crit damage, crit chance, there's a lot of champions and bosses that you'll fight that it's null and void, basically. And when you're maybe going to get, say, even with a bit of might on you from other people, when you're maybe going to get out of it like a 5k hit, when you can constantly get a 3 to 3.5k hit, I'd rather go with that and be up doing more 3.5k hits than a 5k hit. I think that's my thinking with it anyway. So that's that. The other thing I do, because Necros are basically, they're very good at taking conditions off their allies, but they're not very great at taking them off themselves. So both weapons we use here, the axe and the dagger, you're going to mainly be using the axe all the time. They're quite quick weapons, so 60% chance to remove a condition is pretty sweet. Some people would say go with damage, but I think, again, it's just about keeping them off you, and because you don't have a ton of utilities that you can do to keep them off you. You've got that well, but you don't want to use. It's a 40-second cooldown. You don't want to use it just to get one condition off of you. If you can use it to get, it does the pulsing. So 5 conditions off your allies, which is a much better way to use it, I would say. Or add as well, keeping it as a stun break if you don't need it as well. So that's that. In the other slots for any of the weapons here, you can put what you want. At the moment, I mean, I've played around with a few things. I run the Sigil of Force that gives you the 5% damage bonus. It does work out with that amount of power. It's you could go Bloodlust, which gives you the extra 250 power, but that's providing you don't go down. And not everyone is 100% perfect. That you might go down and then it's not consistent. Whereas the 5%, that's a little bit more consistent damage. You're going to get it. It's not relying on killing things or dying yourself. But you can go with whatever you want. You can go with something that gives you more condition duration or permanent bonuses or anything like that. But obviously you wouldn't really go critical hit because we've only got the 9%. And stuff in there, it'd be nice, but it's not really necessary. In terms of food, I've gone with extra healing power because we've got, as you can see over here, extremely good toughness and very good amount of vitality. That's pretty much built. Actually, the vitality side, I should just say, it's most necromancers have a high vitality built in. They don't have a very high toughness or armor rating, so it's nice to get that one up. The only way we've got vitality in this build or extra is from going into the traits. So we're only getting 300 extra, so that's a pretty good base compared to a lot of classes. I mean, Guardians, I think, if you do something in here and you have a look, I think you only have like 13 or 14,000 health as a base. Like, these guys have got more. Yes, it's heavy versus light, but Necros, they can be extremely tough when done right, and this is a very tough build. Okay, so as I said, that's it's working with your vitality and your toughness to give you more healing power. Gives you karma, extra karma, which is nothing to sort of sneeze at really, which is nice. And then we got a damage boost here, basically for power, coming from the vitality and the toughness again. It's a 60-minute version. You can use the 30. I had some from when I was playing with some builds. I made some, and I just stick with that because when I play, I guess that's going to last you through a whole fractal most of the times. And yeah, that's pretty much how that works. One thing I should just cover with the dagger. You can put anything really here. You can use the scepter if you need range, staff if you need more range. The only thing with the scepter is you're not going to have as much DPS because it's more of a condition-based weapon. I go with the dagger because basically you are going to come across enemies that fractals, dungeons, wherever, that can reflect your projectile or ranged attacks, whether it be a mesmer or something like that. So it's nice to be able to get in there and hack up a bit. And then you do get a pretty sweet skill off the dagger that you got, like your immobilize, you got a bit of siphoning and so on, which is pretty cool. So that is that. Now let's get to the traits. Now this is the part that I love the most. Haven't seen a lot of builds like this, and that's why I think I'm quite proud of this one, and people are wondering how I'm doing it, and this is it. So I don't really like putting points into trait lines when they have like a stat bonus that I don't need. So I was like kind of hesitant to, getting the extra precision out of this, and the condition damage. Condition damage is okay, probably the precision you really don't need, but it was all to get to this trait, which is ground targeting. Now a lot of people, it's quite funny, even though you tell them that you're going to be using wells a lot, it's going to be able to heal them or take the conditions off, they run around like mad, and they think that it's usually some sort of entity mark on the ground, and that can be a little bit annoying, but trust me, it's worth it in a lot more situations. Whether stacked or not, whether you need to pull, it's good to give you that AoE in case you need to do AoE from a distance. It's not hurting you too much in that sense. If you do happen to get a crit, you get some bleeding out of it. That's cool. Doesn't really matter. It's just to get to this point, and I think it's well worth it. There really isn't another skill that's worth getting there compared to that one. When we go to Death Magic, we're all the way through. Basically, it's nice to get that extra boon because we are using protection, and that comes from this very first skill here. 4 seconds of protection might not sound like much, but we've got 3 wells that can do it, and a well-timed use of protection, say on someone like Matrin in a fractal, can be the difference, basically. Especially if you've got, I play in a lot of groups that have thieves and mesmers in there, and they're not necessarily the best damage absorbing class, maybe thieves more so, and it's enough to keep a thief up, and if you keep a thief up and he's DPS, he can just keep going crazy, basically. So well timed. A lot of this does rely on good rotations, or just good timing, just using your head, really, not using things when you don't need to use them, and you'll do very well for yourself and for a team. This very first skill here, Armored Shroud, get extra toughness in Death Shroud. It's a bit like this skill above, maybe a little bit more useful, but it's good. It's not great, but it helps us get to this point. It's handy. It does have a little bit of synergy with what's coming up, which is we'll move on to that. So this one is pretty cool. Soul Comprehension, extra life force regen from nearby deaths is increased by 20%. Pretty handy because you want to use Death Shroud. The way that we use Death Shroud in this build is basically as a way to give quite a good burst heal, to give extra support via vulnerability, which is on the next skill, and also to remove there's another one after that, to remove conditions from our allies. Our Death Shroud is going to do that, and on top of that, it's to give yourself a heal while in Death Shroud. So if you can have that up as often as possible, it's extremely good. I played with putting, like I said before, with putting these 2 traits points down here to get the skill. I'll just show you down here, persistence. So your life force drains slower. That's good because when you're in it, you can stay in it for longer, but you don't regenerate it as quickly as you want. Even though you have this increased life force gain from skills, I do find that this is a bit better, and we're going to go down this path anyway. And then the targeting wells is better overall, in my opinion. So that's that. So that keeps it up, and pretty much both of our weapons here, or any of the weapons, other than staff gives a bit, but we don't use the staff too much. They're always going to give you life force from hits, which is quite good. There's quite a good spread, so you're going to be able to keep it up quite nicely, and just killing things, it's going to work well as well. So this is what I was talking about before. Death Shiver gives basically, just from being in Death Shroud, you're going to put 3 stacks every 3 seconds of vulnerability on your enemies, which is another way that I think it's a vulnerability can be looked at as a support item. Support condition, because it gives you more damage, gives everyone more damage, and you're just having to be in Death Shroud to do it. It's pretty sweet in that sense, as well as getting the other benefits that we're going to come to in a moment. Next one, power based on your toughness. We've got nothing in the power tree. Necro is, like I said, being more of a single target. This is what I believe, because they're orientated generally to be a very high single target DPS, which is why I guess they're extremely successful in. I think they're extremely successful in PvP. You don't really need to go too far in here. I mean, you can easily, if you just with armor, you could easily get to like 2500 attack. We're going a slightly different way, so you don't really need it, but you know, it's some pretty big numbers without much effort generally. Again, not putting anything in here. You put stuff in here, you can easily get to, well, I've got, with a full power build, I've got to like, say, 28, I think it was 30 power, which is a hell of a lot. And that was a might stacking build, so when you stack might on top of that, yeah, your numbers just get insane, which is pretty cool. But anyway, back to this. This is quite a lot of power. I think it is to use in a lot of situations, as well as be able to do all this support and survive. So this is what I was saying before about one of the bonuses you get from Death Shroud. Unholy Sanctuary, regenerate health while you're in Death Shroud. 337 every second may not sound like a lot, but it can be enough. You know, you've got quite a few utilities when you're in Death Shroud. You know, you've got Fears, you've got Torment. You might be using it just to save someone else. So at least you get that little heal that, you know, it might tick you over just enough so when you pop out of it, you can drop a massive heal or something like that on yourself and on others to survive the next wave. It'll come down to timing, but with practice, you can do it quite easily. It's just a nice little thing to have. And again, it's probably not, I don't believe there's a skill that's sort of too much better than that. And it enables you as well to use this build anywhere and have like another way to heal. And it's a way to heal that, say, if you're in PvP, someone puts confusion on you and you're in there, it's not going to affect you, which is pretty sweet. Using a skill will affect you, that will not. And it does scale with healing power. That's why it is that bit higher, not massive, but I think it's worth it. Blood magic, finally. Okay, so this is where some of the synergy really comes together. So gain regen when your health drops below 90%. It's a pretty good amount of regen. If you have a good rotation, you're not really going to get below it, but if you do, it's going to pop back up. It works pretty nicely with this one because you got 90% there to start topping it back up. And then you've got here 75%. If you drop below if you stay above 75%, you get an extra 120 of power, which is pretty good. And if you have, again, like I said, if you have a good rotation, if you're switching between Death Shroud when you need it with your rotation, you're going to be keeping that topped up. You've got the regen to top you up. You're going to have, even though it's a 30-second cooldown, if it's a good mix between everything, you're going to keep that up and you're going to have that power up as well, which is it's a bonus at the end of the day. That's how I look at it. Just gives you that bit of extra damage. So if it comes down to it, I guess, and everyone has died for some reason, like say something like the Thermonova reactor in the fractals, you can see it out with quite good power, and you know, people aren't waiting for 2 days for you to solo it down, which is pretty crazy sometimes. Yeah, so now love this skill. So life transfer, the number 4 skill in Death Shroud. This heal is huge. Those numbers, it's a bit different in game. They're a bit higher. Don't know why this skill builder does that. But when you actually look at what it does as well, it's a burst heal that has 9 pulses, saying here 611 of healing throughout each pulse, but it actually scales up with each pulse. I'm not sure on the exact calculation of how it scales up, but say your first one's going to be a heal of 3,000. Once you get to the last one, you're pushing 6,000 on that last one. And when you consider that there's that gap and there's like 9 times, if we go with the lowest number there, 9 times 3, like that's a sort of 3,000, I should say. That is a ton of healing just from that. The best I've seen like on screen when I've been playing is I brought someone up, basically checked with them before, like what their healing, what their vitality's at, what their armor's at, and so on. And brought them up by just over 11,000 healing, 11,000 health points, I should say, just from one burst of that. If it's, you can even time it as well when you know the group's going to take big damage to nullify that damage. And the beauty as well is while you're in that Death Shroud, you're putting on vulnerability. And then the final skill, which I'll just skip to quickly because it's all tied in, Unholy Motto, one of the new ones that came with the last feature pack. It is outstanding. I never thought much about it previously until I started to focus on making a Necromancer a bit more support. Basically, it ties in with everything beautifully because when you're in Death Shroud, you're putting vulnerability, you've got the ability to do a big burst heal, you're healing yourself, and then you're taking conditions off your allies every 3 seconds. So in something where there's a big burst of damage and big burst of conditions, like say the Spider Queen in Ascalon Catacombs, you can almost nullify that whole thing completely, and keep everyone up, keep vulnerability ticking over, and people can just keep like hitting through her. If you combine it with, one way I like to do it, say in that fight, is pop down Well of Power and then shift into it, like when I know that burst is coming. That's going to pulse, and every second it's going to take a condition off, give protection to everyone, and then I'm going to take more off when I'm in here. Smash out one of these life transfers that does damage, and quite a good amount of damage. It scales up just like the healing, like I said before, the damage. Does all of that, and you'll see people's health bars won't move much at all, one way or the other, and if you've timed it really well, they'll actually all go up. Where, that's pretty crazy when you're getting quite a big burst of damage. So some excellent synergy without this. It's a matter of playing around, starting to learn the fights, and then you can get some excellent results out of these different sort of rotations, and you guys might even find better ones than what I use, but I've found it to be extremely efficient so far. So, excuse me. Okay, and then finally, the last skill. Not a lot to write home about at the end of the day. Hold on, did I cover this? Siphoning health when you hit a foe. Sorry, just go back to that one. It's okay. The siphoning doesn't scale brilliantly at the moment. This kind of siphoning anyway. It can work well, say in fractals up to, I guess, I'd say up to like level 15, around that mark. Once you go beyond that, it just doesn't do enough. Whether it's to you or there's ways that you can use siphoning on like for your allies as well. I that was my original build. It's good, but it doesn't scale too well once you get up to like your fractals. Anything above, I guess, 35 and up, it doesn't scale enough. And then that final skill is Ritual Mastery. So we've got those wells up more of the time. The cooldowns on the first two, as we see back here, they're not too bad. Like 35 and 40 isn't too bad. It's more to get this one boosted up. So you've got more condition removal because Necros don't have a lot of condition removal for themselves. And you've got that extra stun break. This one, you've got your 60 seconds, but you got to try and keep that in its active state most of the time. Because it means that when you're out of Death Shroud, you're taking conditions off your allies. When you're in it, you've got another way to take them off. And you've got stun breaks if you need it as well. So pretty good balance, pretty good synergy amongst it all. And that's kind of that's why I think I'm sort of, I guess, most proud of this build. It's just got great synergy all over. Requires, I guess, I'd say as a new player, it might be harder to keep up with, like, sort of the rotation and so on. But you work it out, you keep playing, and just like I did, this was a slightly different way of playing for me, but yeah, you get used to it, you find better ways, and you'll keep your teams up. You don't, like, a lot of people say, there's never Necros in the high-end fractals, because they try and go too hardcore on power, and they can't take any damage. And a lot of the groups can't take much damage as a result because they're too much in the Berserker way. Whereas like this, you don't have a lot of dodges, which is in Guild Wars the best way to avoid damage, but you've got other things that you can do. I mean, this build, I can face tank Matra in a whole fight and basically get all the stacks off it with virtually no assistance from anyone, which tends to happen because people are too scared of the damage. But you can do it extremely well. It's just using timing and using Death Shroud when you need it. It's all about, everything in Guild Wars though, to do it well. If you only use things when you need it, it can be, you can be quite a good player as a result of that. It's just knowing and learning and practicing. I'm starting to waffle on, but that's the build. As I said, I guess I call that my Tough Worlds build. Thank you to everyone for all the feedback on the previous build and the views. That it was awesome to see it sort of build up quite quickly without me really telling anyone about it, which is excellent. Only a few people knew that I was doing this new channel with this new stuff, and yeah, this shorter format I hope is better. It means I can get some more content to you guys a lot quicker. I've got tons of builds, and I've got a ranger that I've made a pretty cool, I think it's a cool sort of build with as well. A bit more of a melee build. It's incredible in PvP, so we'll talk about that next time. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you guys in game.